Welcome everybody who is coming to our broadcast today. Welcome our wonderful guest, Yolanda Kondonassis from the United States, who we have introduced by her wonderful performance of Ginastera First Movement Concerto. And it's my big pleasure to welcome her today to be with us for the interview, Meet the Harp Stars. Of course, you are one of them. And I'm so happy that as a star, you had time to make for us your time and that we can spend some hours together. Thank you very much, Yolanda, to come and be with us.
Thanks so much for having me. This is such a wonderful thing you're doing. It's just, I'm amazed by your technological skills with all of this. And it was such a great idea to bring everyone together like this and just start a great conversation.
Oh, that's really lovely, and really, I'm so happy to meet all of you, like through the not meet, but see you all of you through the screen, and of course to be able to talk to you, and also to get you know more as a people, not as a human being, not only as a really artist from the stage, as everybody knows you, of course. And I'm so glad that we can spend now time and that you can open your life a little bit to us. And of course that we have wonderful time together. And I just want to let you know, I would like, of course, to welcome everybody to be with us. Don't forget to write us any of your questions if you would have any. Please, there are comments, so as soon as there are coming some comments, I will of course bring them into the screen. So if you have any questions, come with them, and of course our wonderful guest today will answer with pleasure all what you would like to know. So Yolanda, how are you in these days, first of all? Yeah, I hope you are fine. Everybody is safe from your family.
Yeah, we're all healthy, we're all safe, but these are strange times, especially for, I think, musicians and performers of any kind. I mean, I don't think any of us knew when we walked off stage, whether it was February or early March, that would be our last time on stage for a while. And, I think the uncertainty is starting to drive us all a little crazy.
I know.
But, I think with things like you're doing and, the creativity of everyone finding a way, music is kind of like water, it will find its way out somehow, no matter how, through what means. So, we'll do okay. We just need to make sure we keep our inspiration. I think that's the hardest thing sometimes, when it just feels like this is going on endlessly. And, you folks in Europe and in Asia and elsewhere have done a little better job than we have here in the United States. So this is going to go on for a while over here. But, are you pretty much getting back to normal where you are?
Absolutely. We are absolutely in the normal now at the moment. So it's we have the concerts, we have everything, it's open. And it's much to the normal, but of course the cases are increasing anyway. It's not getting better, so we don't know if it's not coming back to a little bit restrictions, and so we have no idea. But I know that the situation in US, it's really not good at all. Yeah. And do you remember when was your last concert before everything locked down?
I played the Jennifer Higdon harp concerto. And I did it with a wonderful orchestra, the Wichita Symphony. And that was my last, sizable concert before everything shut down. And then everything just started getting canceled. And, luckily, a few things have been directly rescheduled for next spring. But let us hope we are back to being able to gather, 3,000 people in an indoor space by then, because, the things we did and we appreciated and that made up our lives, we kind of took them for granted. I think sometimes it's not a terrible thing to be forced to feel gratitude for things that are just, a part of our lives. The idea now of gathering a lot of people together in a beautiful concert hall just feels like, this blessing that we had. And I hope we will get back to it soon, because it's such a, the feeling, that idea of just uniting everyone, a huge crowd of people, with the music you're playing. It's a wonderful, it's like this incredible mass meditation almost. It'll be nice to get back to things eventually.
You can't do either the solo recitals. It's everything closed in the US.
Yep. Everything. Even teaching when it begins will probably at this point, at least in the beginning, be remote. It will be, like this. But, like you, I have, learned things I never thought I would need to learn, how to teach. Yesterday, I was teaching, we have an app called Zoom here in the United States, and or maybe that's everywhere, I don't know. you learn all these little tricks for being able to hear well. And, at the beginning, I just felt like I had, a blindfold on. I couldn't see what was going on, but little by little, you learn, you adapt, that's what we do. And it's not that terrible now. I can, with a few little tricks, I can really hear and see what's going on, just at least in terms of teaching. So I am kind of looking forward to doing a little more teaching that way, not because it's kind of something I never did Skype teaching. I never did any of that. So maybe it's opened up, some skills and a way of reaching people I didn't have before.
Yeah, I know we have to adapt to that. And honestly, I have also never thought that I can teach through the internet, but actually I find out also that it's possible. Of course, there is a good internet connection with the people, so it's everything we can adapt. It's very true. But the music, live music, it's missing. And of course, I really hope that we can, especially you. I mean, we in Europe have already the opportunity to play, but that in the US it will come back to the normal as well. Where are you now? In which city are you now?
I live in Cleveland, Ohio. And it's a good place to be based. It's kind of in the middle of most things, and easy drive from the East Coast, New York and Boston and that whole end of things. And it's a good, a lot of people don't know an awful lot about Cleveland, but it's a really good place to live. It's a really wonderful arts and music community with the Cleveland Orchestra, and my husband plays in the Cleveland Orchestra, so it's good for us and my teaching and whatnot. And it's a great place to raise a daughter. It's a nice community.
Of course. So when you only mark now a little bit of your privacy, just tell us, you are from the musical family, as I know. Your mother was a pianist. Is it true? How did you come to the harp? Actually, to play the harp, how did you find out to play the harp? Was it your wish, or did someone inspired you, or your parents wanted? Just if you can just tell us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, everyone seems to have a very interesting story of how they came to the harp. It's one of those instruments that's not just, oh, well, I had to pick an instrument in school and I picked the harp. As you say, I started on the piano, and my mother was a piano teacher, and she started teaching me the piano, I don't know, probably 3, maybe even less. I crawled up on the bed. I have a picture of myself playing the piano when I was, I don't know, maybe 18 months old. Well, I wasn't really playing. I was more like, banging. But, so I did that, and I always thought that would be my instrument. But where I grew up was Norman, Oklahoma, which is, really kind of out west. And certainly then, when I was little, it was less developed in the fine arts, classical music. And so, having my mother as my teacher and my mentor was very helpful, because she had been very well trained. There I am. Look at those curls my mother forced on me, getting me to sit down for hair procedures was, I think, probably my mother's greatest challenge in life. But I was a bit of here in the States, we have an expression, a tomboy, which is, a girl who likes doing sort of, dirty and outdoor things a lot more than sitting inside playing with dolls. And so my mother was fascinated by the harp, I think, and even more importantly, I think she wanted to refine me a bit. She wanted to make me a little more ladylike. So she ordered me a troubadour harp from Lion & Healy. And I remember the day it arrived, it was sort of like, we had seen some harps. We had made a trip to Chicago and seen some harps, but I would never have suggested it. I mean, I thought they were beautiful, but I would have thought, oh, how impractical, and how do you get it around? And how does one even learn how to do that? But my mom, who was very much sort of an outside the box thinker, ordered me one. And I remember looking at it and thinking, well, okay, what do I do with this? But she managed to find me a teacher, the teacher in the Oklahoma City Philharmonic. And so I began studying the harp. And, I think all harpists will know it's a little easier to begin the harp when you already know something about music. And, when people say, what age should I begin my child learning to play the harp? And I always say, well, it's very helpful if piano is a wonderful basis for the harp. And so at the very beginning, I think it was a great thing. The harp came easily at first. I already read music, of course, and the dexterity of playing the harp is similar, very different technique, but similar to the piano. So
the notation is the same. So it's also the synchronization of two hands. Absolutely, the piano is the good start. Yeah, indeed.
Right. And I've often said because it came easily at first, I was kind of hooked before I realized how hard it is to play the harp well. I think I was so far in by the time I realized, this is a little harder than I thought. I think that was a good thing that, I'd already gotten hooked, and that gave me the ambition to get better and work hard.
And who was your first teacher? Because you were living not in the city where was really the university for the harp, or who was actually, it was the person from the orchestra who?
Yes, my first, I had one teacher for a very short time. And then, really the first person I studied with for a length of time was a wonderful harpist named Susan Diedrich. She was the harpist in the Dallas Symphony for many years. And that was a very good relationship, because she saw something in me and suggested that I connect with the woman who became my teacher for many years, Alice Shalafou. And so I started studying with her in the summers. That's Jan Shalafou, her niece. And I studied with her some in the summers as well. And there she is. She was a pistol. Quite a personality, Alice Shalafou. And, I think many people benefited from her, her very authentic personality, both on the harp and off the harp. But she had a way of motivating, I think. And, as I was saying before, the harp is hard. No one should ever say it is just this, it's angelic and wonderful. This. You've got to really get in there and work at it. And, it helps, like I said, to have a little bit of a natural feel for it, but there's no getting around the work. So training is important, as we all know.
So only to be back, you started when you were about 8 years old?
About nine really, before I kind of got going. Yep.
Yeah. With Miss Professor, you started to work when you were already playing on the big harp.
I didn't really ever play on a big harp. I started with a harp without pedals, but that I grew out of that very quickly. We rented a harp. All these little experiences. We rented a harp from a lady in Oklahoma City, which was the nearest big town. And I remember it was tiny. It was a tiny, I can't even remember the brand. I'm sorry about the phone ringing over there. Life in the Corona era. And it was a tiny gold harp, kind of a faded old gold harp. And I remember the way it smelled so very distinctly. It smelled like wood polish and cigarette smoke, and it had pedals. But as we were bringing it back to my house, it started raining like crazy, and we did not have a car that held a harp. We had a small car, so the back of the car was open, and we had it tied with a rope, and the bottom of the harp was like sticking out, I think covered with a garbage bag. And I remember it started to storm, and we stopped under an overpass on the highway and waited for the storm to pass with this, harp sticking out the back of our car and wondering, what are we doing? So that was only the beginning.
Oh my, this is really a great story. I just don't want to forget to bring in the comments. So many greetings to everybody who is with us. I'm so glad. So just very quickly, so that you will know that we have really nice audience together.
How nice.
Yes. So really,
Malvina.
Yeah. How really lovely to see all of you here again with us. And of course, we are very glad for all your comments. So you can bring them in many times. We will be very happy to hear from you. Yeah, so this is really amazing story. So, but the instrument survived. I hope that
it did survive. And, so I learned to play the real harp on a tiny little pedal harp.
And your own first instrument, when did you get it?
I got a Model 15 Line and Healy harp a few years later. But luckily, I went to a wonderful high school, Interlochen Arts Academy, here in the States. And they had several harps, full-sized harps. And so really that became my primary source of instruments, at least for the first few years. And, I think in many ways it was like going to a conservatory before getting to the college level. So that was wonderful preparation, a very special place. And I studied with Joan Holland up at Interlochen, who is a wonderful person and personality and fabulous harpist. So, I think good training is quite a blessing. You've got to seek it, and it won't just land in your lap. You need to do your research and find out where you can. It has to be a good fit for you, your personality, and your goals. Keep looking. The kids today have so many resources for finding out things. In my day when I was getting started, there was the American Harp Journal, and a little word of mouth. We didn't, in a few clicks, we couldn't find out who's who and what's what.
That's really something what is very unique now for the young generation, but they don't even realize, because for them it is normal, but it won't be normal in the past. Yeah. And I just would like I would be interested to know, with your teacher, with Mrs. Ellis, how long have you studied with her, first of all, and what was her style of playing? Because I have never honestly heard her. Even I heard about her, but her playing I have never heard. So she was studying with Grangiani, or she was studying with whom?
She studied with Carlos Salcedo. And she went to the Curtis Institute. And I began studying with her when I studied some in the summers with her before I went to the college, the university level, at the Cleveland Institute of Music. And so really when I was 18 is when I began studying with her, on a full-time basis. And I got 2 degrees at the Cleveland Institute of Music, a bachelor's and a master's degree. And
you studied the Salcedo technique.
Yes. Yeah. And she was so wonderful at providing the foundation, the basis. And harpists have so many conversations, and good ones. We need to be having all these conversations about technique. But what I find is that, technique is the means. It's not the end. It's not the result. Technique is how we get to the result. And, I feel like, your technique is if you were a visual artist, it's like your paintbrushes and your paint and your tools that you do things with. And as I was saying, what I find is that when I have great conversations with harpists from all over the world, I judged a competition recently with Isabel Moretti, and we really hit it off. And we came from two very different technical traditions, but we agreed on everything. What we were listening for, what our priorities musically, what those expectations were, what we appreciated in a player. And I think that is where the conversation needs to get to. It's a good conversation to talk about sound production and, what we do with our finger once we pluck a string. And it's great. It's a learning experience for all of us to understand how we all get to our results. But, we need to spend just as much time, I think, talking about what our musical priorities are. What is music about? What are we trying to say? How do we develop our voice? And part of that is through technique, but that's just the beginning. We can't even consider stopping there and letting that define us as artists.
Absolutely. I think that this is like when as I said to my students, you build the house, this is the technique, and when you want to do the roof and you want to make the cover of the house, that's the music. Which
Right.
actually, every house can be very different, and it can just be so unique. But the basics has to be really stable, very stable, so that you can really build the music above that.
Exactly. That's perfectly said. Absolutely. It's the, it's the toolbox.
Absolutely. Cannot be without each. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. And I think, when I was coming up, between the ages of maybe my age of 18 and I don't know, maybe 35, the conversations were not as productive, I think. I don't know if you found this yourself, but the conversation seemed to stop at technique. Everyone would get very stuck in talking about their own way of doing things, and that it was the best way, and all of that. And I think that the conversations have gotten a lot more productive, and I think harpists have really understood and realized that we promote our instrument, our cause, our young people, everybody a lot more if we make that only a part of the conversation and in a way of learning about each other, because that's that's the way to promote our field.
You are very right. And as I was also going through some of your photos to search more than you have sent, so that I can show more. I found there also pictures of Rainier and Grangiani. Was there some connection between you and those people in the way that you were inspired by them, or they were just your idols, or what was the reason? If I can show them, here is the Rainier. And here's Grangiani. So as you mentioned that your teacher was a student of Salcedo, then it's very clear. But of course, they were different. So just if you can tell a little bit about that.
Well, I talk to my students about this a lot, where you can have many teachers, and some of them you will not study with directly, and I used to listen to recordings endlessly. And that was in the day when, if you wanted to listen to a recording, you went to a library and you got a big vinyl record, giant, and you put on headphones and you sat there, and I would, have my score in front of me, and I would listen, and, you learn so much from just listening. I feel like if I have one perhaps complaint about all the stuff out there right now, is that I think for some young people, it's harder to find the really good stuff, the stuff that you can really learn from, and I listen to recordings of Zabaleta and Lily Laskin and Marcel Grangeny and, all the wonderful players that came before me. I would sit there and I would study, and back then you couldn't just like slide the toolbar. You had to take the needle off the record, the vinyl record, and like move it. When I wanted to listen to something over and over, I had to go and move it back, and then it'd go back too far, but then I'd listen to it all again. It was like, wait, no, I have to do that again. You know, to see, that's where I think we develop a lot of our musical instincts and our musical, our critical mind, not critical like insulting. I mean, critical like what we're listening for, what we want ourselves to be as musicians. And one exercise sometimes I have my students do, if I feel like they're struggling to find their voice, or even if they're not, I ask them to write a review of themselves where, and I tell them, don't be humble. Don't like, you know, I want it to be the best rave review you can imagine, but I don't want it to just be, oh, that's the best harpist in the world. I want it to be appreciating and talking about the things that you would like to be commended for, those things that you would place the biggest value on, and how that would be heard by a very educated ear. And very often you start to walk into your own idea of what you want to be, if you know what that is. You know, and all of us, I mean, you are just such a brilliant and lyrical, and you know, when you play, it's just you know, we are not aware of any sort of technical concern you might have. You keep all that from the audience, and you know, everyone has kind of their thing that they excel at. No one is fabulous at everything. I don't think. There are very, very few people who do everything 150%, but it's if you can find those things that you do particularly well, and then expand and develop and make those your voice. I think that's the trick.
Yeah, it's wonderfully said. And I don't know if you have mentioned that I post there also a comment, which is absolutely wonderful for your presentation, and I'm really very glad that this comment came in, because this is connected actually what you are talking now about. It is part of the reviews, which should be mentioned always. So I'm so glad that people just mentioned it also. You are absolutely right with what you said also before about the inspiration of the heroes, which we had the chance to listen on the recordings. Don't you think that in the past it was also meant, because the recordings were asking the big players to record the CD, so they were really selected and they were really meant to be the biggest names and the best harpists ever, which has actually changed now in these days, so that it's meant to be like when you have a chance to record. And of course, for the big companies, it is maybe a little bit different, but for the smaller companies and so on, that the people can pay for the making records. So actually everybody can make the recording, which is great. But actually, as you said, there is no selection of the really best harpists, and you hardly can really now discover who is really the one who you should listen as an inspiration.
You know, it's a different route to success now. And in some ways, you know, when you and I were getting started, you know, there was a little bit of a formula, I'd say. Maybe you agree. You know, I remember when I got management in New York and a recording contract within about the same year, that was like, just, I thought I had died and gone to heaven, because, you know, then it was the early 90s. I couldn't do what I wanted to do without either of those things. It was not possible for me to just, you know, promote myself or record myself, or, you know, and that was back in the day, you know, when we really had record labels, you know, and as you say, you couldn't just say, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to make a record, and then, you know, find some funding and do that. So, I think that what you said is very, very true. It is both good and less good, because I think young players have to sort through an awful lot of stuff. And I think YouTube makes it even harder because, while I think it is fantastic that students can post their senior recital on YouTube, but, sometimes when I ask a student, they don't do this anymore because they know I get a little, I get a little annoyed if they give me the wrong answer. But when I say, well, so have you listened to some recordings to, just see what's out there? And, if they say, oh, yeah, I found something on YouTube. And it's like, well, who was it? Where was it? When was it? And it's like, oh, I think it was someone's recital. It's like, that is a great way to see where other people are in their process, and very helpful. But you really do want to also seek out those people who've been doing it a while. And as you say, the ones that have a variety of different things to offer your search for interpretation,
Absolutely. It is, as you said, in a good way that there is opportunity for everyone, but on the other hand, it's harder sometimes because the young students has to have the inspiration, and if the inspiration for them, it's someone who actually put them in the wrong way, and they don't know that it's not correct, because sometimes they also listen to the music which we as a teacher gave them to study, and they listen to the YouTube recording, and then they come to the lesson and they play totally wrong rhythm, they play totally wrong interpretation, and they say, like, we heard it on the YouTube. And then very hardly you can get out of it because they get used to listening to it.
Exactly. I think that there are some folks, I believe, that think, well, don't listen to any recordings while you're learning a piece. And while I do feel that you need to study the piece and have it in your fingers a bit before you start doing your deep study, one's interpretation, and something I really encourage my students to do is listen to piano music, great piano music, the great pianists, because our musical sensibility is cultivated almost subconsciously. It's not always like, okay, in this piece, I'm going to wait a little bit longer before this note, and at this cadence, I'm going to, hesitate a little bit, and I'm going to stagger this. And, it can't really be quite that scientific. It needs to be something that just washes over you over time, that becomes what you expect to hear, and therefore you will expect yourself to do. It's like that musical instinct that while you can't teach that entirely, you can cultivate it. You can make people know what does one do at a moment like this, and then it's stored somewhere deep back here, and you just do it. That has to be nurtured, and listening to, and I find that piano music is great because we're not, as harpists, quite so like all caught up in the intricacies of a piece of harp repertoire we know well. We've heard it many times. It's like a little bit more of an open subconscious when you listen to, Jean-Yves Thibaudet playing the Ravel piano concerto in G. It's like, it's kind of like what we do, but it is different, but similar enough to give us those instincts,
And it's very interesting to know that really most of the harpists who wants really to bring the harp to the higher level have been always inspired by the other instruments, because I think that we can learn so much from them. And I think sometimes more than when we were really only listen to our harp music. It's so important to have the inspiration of the phrasing, of everything, of all what the other instruments do, so that we can really bring the harp to the higher level of interpretation as well. And I think that this is great that you mentioned that, because I think that it should be mentioned many times and often and more often, so that the people will listen. And of course, now it's very also common that the harpists are playing the piano repertoire. So if it's brings into the repertoire, brought into the repertoire, we should be inspired how it is played on the piano, and it should not sound worse on the harp, but better. So that the people will say, well, it sounds better on the harp, so that's why she plays it, and not
Right.
oh, she plays it on the harp and she cannot play it in the same tempo as the piano, or so that it should be somehow we should be inspired on the other instruments as well. So totally agree, absolutely. And I think we have also now comment. Yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's very true. That's subconscious. And, I will sometimes, the piano is probably our closest cousin. But I think as, we do all this plucking, and that sound can be sometimes, if we let it, it can be kind of limiting. It can be sort of drier than it should be. And so I think it's very important also to imagine single line instruments like a violin. What is that like to sustain a sound?
Yeah.
And it's almost like if you can think it, you can make it. You know what I mean? And so if you have that in your ear, it changes what you do subtly. You can't put your finger on it. It's like, okay, now that I listen to that line on the violin, or I'm imagining it, I'm going to do this with my finger. It doesn't happen like that. It's just sort of like all of a sudden, you're thinking of a single note in a different way.
Absolutely. Singing also, the voice, it's the most important actually instrument, put it this way, which can really help us to breathe, to know everything. And as you said, the violin or any of the bow instruments, I mean the string instruments, if you know the bowing and if you just feel that you want to just bring a new bow, you also understand the breeze, So I think that we are on the same wave in this way, so that we really understand exactly the same structure of what we should bring into the harp playing for sure, and everybody should think about it. I absolutely agree with it. Yeah. So when you started to play the harp, did you still continue to play the piano, or you totally stopped to play the piano?
I continued to play the piano for several years, through most of high school, but eventually I had to pick. I felt that on the harp you have to play in orchestra. There's an awful lot of you do chamber music, and then of course all the solo repertoire. It was getting very difficult at Interlochen Arts Academy, which I said is like a music conservatory for high school students. Getting hard to do both as well as I wanted to. So I pretty much jumped onto the harp side of the fence around age 16.
And what, after when you finish your studies, what was your goal to do? Did you want to be only soloist at that moment, or did you already wanted to make some auditions to be in the orchestra? How was your life going after the studies?
Well, I think from earliest memory, I enjoyed my solo playing. I liked being in kind of control of the whole product an awful lot. I did an awful lot of orchestral playing. I played substitute harp with the Cleveland Orchestra all my years through school. I spent some time with the San Francisco Symphony, the Atlanta Symphony. I spent a year with the St. Louis Symphony. So I've done quite a bit of orchestra playing. But my real end game for my personality was to try and become a soloist. And that I knew that was a bit of an impractical goal. So I kept doing all the other stuff at the same time, which, a few moments ago I was saying when I got the New York management and the recording contract, I was about, 24, I think. I felt like I had just died and gone to heaven. I felt like this, so, the rest of my 20s and my 30s were spent, doing a lot of recording, a ton of touring, Which is why I had my daughter, pretty late. I had her when I was 38. And, I pushed that biological, there she is. I pushed my biological clock to the very limit because, I felt like I was doing a lot of what I really had wanted and hoped to do. So I wanted to keep doing it as long as I could.
But I think that to have child is something what we really finally find that it's really the most important in life, just to fulfill our human needs. And it's, I totally agree that even if it's come later, I had also my children, I think at that time it was quite late. I had the first child when I was 29, but it was usual that the people had it 18 years old when they were, so it was like very late at that moment. But of course, I think that this was the most important target for my life at the time. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do. It's a conversation I have with a lot of young musicians, certainly with my own students sometimes. I would not have missed having my daughter for everything in the world. I would trade my entire career for having my daughter without blinking an eye. If somebody said, okay, you can have your career or you can have your daughter, it's like, easy, take my daughter. But not to say both are not, important. And I think I am a better mom because I have something in my life that's very important to me, that I've worked hard at, that I take pride in, and so I think that's very important for, a mother to, to model for a daughter or a son. But, you're absolutely right. It is the thing that, I think it helps your music as well. I turn a phrase a little bit differently since I've become a mom than I did before. I would imagine you do too. It's like there's a quality that you can pull up, an emotion that you can pull up that I think I was not able to do as well before.
Absolutely. I had also the feeling of the same change in myself from time when I began to be mother. Yeah, I totally agree. Oh, we have here a wonderful comment from Marisa Robles. Thank you so much again to be with us.
Marisa, she's another one that I listened to many recordings of when I was learning to be a harpist, and I just always so appreciated Marisa's clarity and rhythm and so much life in her playing. So nice to hear from you, Maritza.
She said to me that she was in the jury when you were participating in Israel. So if you remember her from that time.
Absolutely. And I know Alice Shalafu was very, very fond of Maritza Robles. She just thought Maritza was a kick, a wonderful personality. And
do you remember what was the program in Israel when you were participating?
Let's see. I remember the Taillefer Sonata. I think the Debussy Trio was on there. A sonata by Benda, which I have really not played since. Wasn't my favorite. The Gunther Schuller Fantasy, I believe. I played the Udi Sonata. I can't remember. That was a time when I was just doing all sorts of, that was the competition era. And, competitions are...
Which year was it? Probably.
Oh, that's a good question. I think I was maybe 19. So, no, it was early 80s. Early 80s. But, competitions are something that I talk with my students a lot about. What competitions give you that is the most valuable, I think, is the preparation. to be asking more of yourself in that practice room, and it takes, a year or more to prepare for these things. So, you push yourself and you learn lots of repertoire. And it is I would say that, as we were talking about, before, when I mentioned that I had judged a competition with Isabel Moretti, it was so delightful to find that we had exactly the same musical priorities, really. But especially during that period in time, as I mentioned before, there she is. In that time, as I mentioned before, the conversations about technique were less productive than they are now. And there did seem, in my generation and the one a little bit before me, there was a bit of a great divide when it came to technique. And I'm sure you can speak to this as well. But, like I said, it was less productive. There was quite a difference in appreciation of styles. There was you sometimes kind of wondered if people were listening to the same thing, because the conclusions would be so completely different, So I'm very encouraged by where we're going as a field, as colleagues, as mutual supporters of the harp. I think we're getting to a very good place.
Absolutely. I agree. We are more supportive as well. That's very true. Yeah. And if you don't mind, I would like to know also, because of course you mentioned that your husband is a musician as well, and he's in the orchestra. What instrument does he play?
He plays principal trumpet in the Cleveland Orchestra. So, he tours all over the world. He does a lot of solo playing as well. He runs a music festival. He has a very eclectic career, but his main focus, of course, is the orchestra. But orchestras are really in a strange predicament right now, because there's 100-some people in any orchestra, and they're all very close, and they're blowing and they're doing all those things we're not supposed to do around other people right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how long all of this is going to keep orchestras from performing.
Yeah. Have you ever played together? Because it's a very interesting combination. I've never heard anyone to play duo with the trumpet. Have you ever played together?
We did a benefit concert together once, and we did. There's not a lot of original repertoire. I mean, I love chamber music, and it's something that I think I'm sure you feel the same way. It's a different muscle, and it's a very important thing to do along with solo playing or orchestral playing or whatever your main thing is. I think chamber music is that wonderful middle ground, where you're playing with others, and yet you have a lot of contribution to the musical product. But we haven't played much together other than that. I think we understand each other extremely well because we are both musicians. We're both perfectionists. We both, neither one of us will ever shame the other one for being up practicing until 2 or trying to get something right, or we get it. It's done when it's done. So we never will say, hey, it's the weekend, are we going to do something? It's like, well, I kind of have this recording coming up, and I pretty much need to practice 10 hours on Saturday and Sunday. It's a good understanding, but I think it's also good we're not in exactly the same little area of the field. So
when you mentioned the recording, of course, I'm so proud to know that you were the one who was nominated at the Grammy Classic, and your composition, which you were performing, was awarded as well. Can you tell us a little bit about this recording and once more, big congratulations to you, because it's
Thank
fantastic success for you, of course, but also for the harp world, if I would put it this way, because it's great that the harp, it's not put behind that, but it's also taken as a serious instrument. So if you can tell us, first of all, about the music. Did you record it? For which company? And what was the price? And how did you feel? And all these experiences.
Well, here in the States, and internationally as well, the Grammy Awards are a wonderful organization that, rewards recorded performances. This was for a piece that I commissioned and premiered. Actually, the day of the Grammys, I performed the Jennifer Higdon Harp Concerto for the 9th time. And then after the performance, I jumped on a plane and, caught the end of the ceremony. But, this was a wonderful piece. And I think that one thing perhaps I'm especially proud that I've been able to do is commission some new pieces. And some of them I hope will be played by many harpists for a long time. And I am certain that this one will. Jennifer Higdon is a phenomenal composer. She really seems to understand instruments. She's written quite a few instrumental concertos. And this one's just entitled Harp Concerto. And it was written for me. And we spent some time together before she started writing. And I think one interesting thing that she does is she tries to get to know her performers a little bit. And I remember telling her the things I wished for in a harp concerto. I told her I wanted it to be something that many people would want to play. I didn't want it to be kind of so obtuse that it might get played 2 or 3 times and then, put on the shelf. It's got a lot of personality, this piece. It doesn't necessarily sound like your typical harp concerto, which I think is why it was recognized in such nice ways. And it's fun to play. It's fun to perform. I recommend it to anybody who's looking to play a harp concerto.
The music, it's published already, right?
Yes. It's available now, and it's in 4 movements, and they're very colorful movements. Like the first movement is called First Light, and the second movement is called Joyride, and the third movement is a lullaby, which as I do often when we got acquainted before she started writing, I talked some about my daughter, who I'm just in love with. And my daughter is a very precocious, very lively kid. And, she is 17. She's 17. She'll go to college next year, which will be difficult for me. But, this lullaby isn't like a sleepy lullaby. The third movement, it's a very precocious lullaby. It's spirited, and it's very much like my daughter. So that will always be very special to me. And then the last movement is called Rap Knock, and she, has the harpist doing a lot of rhythmic interplay. It's just fun. It's just a fun piece. And I when I had it commissioned, I wanted very much to make sure it got performed. So I had a whole consortium of orchestras that collaborated to fund and perform the piece. So I was happy to be able to do that.
And you have chosen the composer by yourself.
I think it's important to really find composers that speak to you, and also you feel will write well for the instrument. I've done a lot of commissioning, a lot of premiering, and in fact, I just wrote a book called The Composer's Guide to Writing Well for the Harp. And it was a project that kind of had been writing itself in my head for many years, because this. I'm sure you've worked with dozens and dozens of composers who are, generally there are 2 kinds of composer that I run into. One that thinks, no problem, I got this. And then the writing is fairly impractical. And then you have the other composer who's a little bit scared, and they're uncertain, and I don't really understand the harp. And then that is fine. I will sit down with a composer for hours if they like and try and explain the instrument and, you know, what works, what doesn't. But I thought the time was right to really just put all that in a book. And, you know, there's some fine books on contemporary harp writing and that kind of thing, but this is more like a conversation. It's like do's and don'ts, stay away from this. Harpists will hate you if you write this, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, so.
Yeah, these advices are very important, of course, because especially if this composer you have asked for commission, you commissioned the piece and write the concerto. Did she ever write the harp piece before, any solo piece or chamber music piece, or it was the very first piece she wrote for the harp?
No, she had done quite a bit of writing for the harp in her orchestra parts. And in fact, one of the things she did right before the harp concerto was an opera, which was, you know, incredibly well received. A Cold Mountain was the opera. It was based on, you know, a wonderful book, and there was a movie. And she said that in preparation for writing this harp concerto, she gave it a huge harp part so that she could have practice writing for the harp. And oddly enough, one of my students was at a music festival last year where they performed Cold Mountain. And she said, well, thank you for the great harp part in Cold Mountain because of your concerto. You know,
that's lovely. And then you recorded. For which company did you record it?
Well, the two, you know, more major labels that most of my recordings are on are Telarc. For many years, I think I made about 15 recordings for Telarc. And then in recent years, my primary label has been Azika. And I recorded American Harp, American Rapture, which was the Jennifer Higdon piece, an album called Solo Harp with Azika. So those are my more recent records. And I did a couple of projects for a new label, Oberlin Music, which is a recording label that is, you know, funded and spearheaded by, oh my goodness, look at that hair. Ooh, that was a long time ago. Oberlin Music sponsored my Gina Stara recording and another album I did of music by Ravel. So I think it's, you know, and Oberlin Music was perfect for the Gina Stara recording because that, you know this, when you play a concerto, very often it's a collective interpretation. You go in somewhere, you have a couple rehearsals maybe, and the interpretation is always a little bit different based on the group, the orchestra, the conductor, the acoustic in the hall even. And so the Gina Stara I've played so many times, and I have very strong ideas about it. And so I wanted to do it in a place where I could really make that interpretation very close to my own. And that was the perfect setting to do that.
And did you play the Gina Stara recording with the same orchestra as the recording of the new piece you were mentioning before?
No, that was the Jennifer Higdon Harp Concerto was recorded with a Rochester Philharmonic, and it's on an album with other pieces. They did the Barber Symphony on the album as well. It's all American music, and a wonderful young composer named Patrick Harlan contributed a piece as well called Rapture. So that's how we kind of got the American Rapture title.
Okay, and the nomination was made for the concerto or for the interpretation, and just if you can tell us a little bit about this Grammy award.
Well, you know, the project received 2 Grammy Award nominations, one for the harp concerto and one for best instrumental solo. And you know, that to me was just so gratifying because, you know, when you look, you know, if you're a member of the Recording Academy and those first ballots come out, there are just hundreds and hundreds of amazingly worthy, wonderful projects on those things. You just look at it and you think, how on earth do we narrow it down to 5, performances that are nominated? And the answer is you can't. I mean, there's a bit of, luck and whatever else involved, visibility. I mean, I'm lucky that this concerto got a lot of good press, a lot of great reviews and that kind of thing. That helps if it kind of gets out there into the, public eye. But so it was nominated as one of the 5 in 2 categories, and it won the Grammy in one of them. So it was thrilling, incredibly thrilling to be part of that project. And, and how this is. You've recorded so much, whenever you make a recording, you just, and this one was live, which makes it even more just like, stressful. So, we had basically kind of two nights to get a commercial recording of not just the harp concerto, but the Barber Symphony and the other piece, the Patrick Harlan Rapture. Wow. So, and at the time I was having insane problems with string breaking, and that has calmed down now. But the string quality, I think, has improved somewhat. I don't know. Did you have much problem with it?
It's been all over the world, the problem with the strings. Yeah, it has been breaking all the time. Everybody has complained about that. Yeah, hopefully it is gone, this problem. It has been some kind of series of strings which were not in a good quality.
Yeah. But I was truly losing my mind, just to be very honest. I broke a string in the world premiere of the Jennifer Higdon Harp Concerto. It started before, I would say, for about 3 years or so. It was the rare performance when I didn't break a string.
Oh my God.
It was just, they would just unravel in the course of a concert.
What did you do? Did you finish the movement and then you continued, or did you stop and start again from the beginning, or how did you manage this? Because it has happened to me in Ginastera once. I played, but of course it has been the tupper note, and it was but I could have some kind of coverage, and then only between the movements I have changed the string. But what did you do?
Well, it kind of depends on what string broke and how much I need it. If it's a real upper string or, something I can get around, I will finish the movement. But if it's right there in the middle, there's not much you can do. So I've kind of become a stand-up comedian. You have to stand up and say, pull the string out and, say, and talk about it. And as I change the string, I'll, talk a little bit about the harp and, the cow gut problem we have, which, I don't know if you heard this as well, but I guess the best explanation I heard from multiple sources is that the quality of, material in the UK because of mad cow disease had to be, they wouldn't let the old cows live long enough to make harp strings. They would kill all cows of a certain age.
I heard.
So, so I was honestly, Jana, I was starting to think I can't do this anymore. This is too stressful. So as you can imagine, in the live recording, it was performances in front of a full audience full of people. And, you worry about somebody's cell phone ringing, you worry about all sorts of things. And you worry about getting everything in two performances. And, luckily I did not break a string in either one of those live performances. Somebody was looking out for me, but
we have got comments from Marisa Robles. I think that, Marisa, we are talking about this brand. Unfortunately, that was exactly the case, that even we all know that they are really the best strings. They did not have a good period of time, but now it's everything again in a good
Yeah.
quality.
I think that, I just restrung my harp again very recently, and that was a couple months ago, and haven't been performing on it because of COVID, but they seem to be holding up. They're stretching out. It seems that the strings before, as they would stretch and settle, they would start to unravel, which was very problematic, to say the least.
Yeah. But we have also now the audience that they are confident, and they are really saying that they confirm that you were really handling it really beautifully.
Well, you can laugh or you can cry. So I usually chose to laugh or try.
I know some of the people know my story, that also it has happened to me that the wire string doesn't break too often, but it has happened to me that in one piece, twice has broken the wire string. And in one piece, so I started to play, and then boom, a huge bump of the wire string. And of course, I could not play because it was not the lowest one, but it was some which I really needed. So I stopped and I made a fun of the, as you said, a comedian. You had to make it. And I started the piece from the beginning, and in a half of the page, has broken another wire string. So it was just like a nightmare, because the wire string is not easy to change always. It's not so quick. You have to cut.
And I will often, when I change wire strings, I use like gloves. I have, these to keep, because often you could cut yourself. And I had, this almost never happens, as you say, but I had a wire string, a bass wire string break in the opening recital of the American Harp Society way back in, I don't know, mid 90s. And I was halfway through Carlos Salcedo's Scintillation, the last piece on the program. And it broke, and I kind of tried to keep going for a little bit, but it was flopping around and blah, blah, so I had to stop. And it was very memorable, to say the least. And so I got a string and I was changing it. And then, as I mentioned, I always use gloves when I'm, they're very tight fitting gardening gloves, so I can, see what I'm doing. But otherwise I cut myself. And I remember as I was changing that string, the end of it, gave me this little gash on my palm. And so I started at the beginning of Scintillation again. And, my palm was bleeding and sticking to the strings. And it was, I don't think people realize how much we harpists go through,
Oh my God.
The pain.
Absolutely. Did you have any, ever any surgery, or something, but injury of your body that you could not play the harp? Did you cut your finger, or did you broke your hands? Hopefully not, but did you have anything what had to somehow change your playing? Or maybe just that you had to stop for a while. Did you have ever something like that with your hands?
I am really lucky. I have never had an injury or tendinitis or carpal. I've never had anything like that. And, I have struggled in my life with blisters sometimes, because I know people who've never had a blister in their entire life, but I guess it's my kind of skin. It's not very tough. And so I will, especially when I play Gina Stera, I find that that right thumb, it gets punished a little bit, and I will often get like a blister under a callus. And sometimes I will, in the winter, I will get cracks right at my nail, generally on my thumb, that are, we all kind of have our whatever thing it is. But I'd say, I'm lucky. I've never had any sort of muscle, bone, tendon kind of nerves, nothing like that. But blisters are my health, my cross to bear in this field.
Also be connected when it's hot outside, so that everything this can be also like making a problem with the colors, not calluses, but the blisters on the fingers. And I know
they get moist, and it's not.
Indeed, And also, I know that if someone is used to practice on the very soft harp, and then they start to play on the stronger one, and they suddenly realize that if they touch it the same soft way on the strong, it doesn't have any sound. So that they started to play really strong, they get the blisters, of course, because it's more tension.
Well, I've started experimenting with a little bit of enhancement. I have just very recently, for the first time, I had a microphone jack built into my harp, and I have an amp that, I find that because all orchestras now, they like to make recordings for either, their own purposes or for National Public Radio, or, you're not just playing a performance for a live hall, you're making a recording. And so there's a microphone right above you that is recording. And then, if the hall has some other kind of acoustic system, there's that going on too. But that I find I'm getting the hang of that a little bit more, because what I like about that is, we all, you do it, I do it, we all do it. When we're playing in a big hall with an orchestra, we have to really project. We have to push out that sound in a way we would never do in a recital. That there where we can be more sensitive. We can the canvas, dynamic canvas, can be more sensitive. But what now with all these radio broadcasts, that does not sound good to a mic right above you that's live streaming or on the radio. So the reason that I like this plug-in mic is that I can control it, and it does not at all sound artificial. Like sometimes if they use a microphone in the auditorium, it sounds kind of synthetic or brassy or something. This, I can just turn the dials myself to make it like, 10% more sound, so that I can make a better recording for them and the audience can hear it. I can do both things at once, where before, it was like, well, what's more important to you? I would ask, the audience or the radio. I can't do both. And, but now I kind of can.
And you are playing on the Line and Healy, or which harp do you use?
My own harps are Line and Healy. But, I, like you, I'm sure, I play on a lot of different harps. I would say I only have my own harp to perform maybe a quarter, 25% of the time. The rest of the time I'm using other harps. So I try and play on a Line and Healy when I can, because those tend to be feel more familiar.
Of course, yeah, of course. And we just jump over, because I forgot still to go to the point when you had the ceremony of the awards. If you can tell us a little bit about that, because it was certainly a big event, and like also not only event but evening. With whom did you meet there? Who was there?
Well, you know what? I was nominated for a Grammy Award a few years ago. And that I went to with my husband. And my husband is a huge rock fan. And it was like he was at Disneyland. He was going up to everybody and saying, "Oh my God, I'm such a fan." And, all of this. I tend to not, I'm like weird. I don't recognize people. Even when I'm a huge fan, I don't recognize them when they don't look like they look on their, their album covers of their videos. So I just walk right by him, and he's like, "Do you know who that was?" It's like, who? And
I totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole experience is sometimes a little bit lost on me. But I remember I didn't get there for the whole thing, because, as I mentioned, I had to play a concert that day. So I played, it was an afternoon Sunday concert. I hopped on a plane, I got out there, but my daughter, I remember when I went the last time, I said to myself, I have got to get back here somehow, because I wanted my daughter to experience it. And so she went out, she was old enough to go out by herself. And she hung out with the conductor and his fiance. and they had a wonderful time. And she's a huge fan of an artist named Billie Eilish. And, you know, they give you really good seats if you're nominated. And so she was like inches from all of these amazing people that she was a fan of. And I remember the last time I went, Elton John performed, and all the, you know, there were really some people that I was a huge fan of, but this time was for her. She got to see all the people that, you know, she loved. And the conductor, Ward Stair, of the Higdon Harp Concerto, was sitting next to her, and she had just spotted I can't remember who it was that she was a huge fan of, and he made a little video. She was just like going, oh my God. She was all red and just like, oh. And I will treasure that video of her from the side, just like freaking out that she had just seen someone that she loved. So I lived through that. That was the best part of it.
I can imagine. And when they announced that you are awarded, or that the concerto was awarded, did they post also the sample of the orchestra composition, or I mean of the concerto? Well,
there are two separate categories. One is for the harp concerto itself, and the other is for the solo instrument. It's the category. You kind of, if you're a soloist, this is the category to get nominated in best solo instrumental performance. So.
But did they post? I mean, not post. How do say broadcast also the sample of the concerto so that they heard it there or not?
Not generally. No, they have a lot of awards to move through, and you know, in the evening, the big, you know, televised thing, they don't announce that many awards in the evening. It's mostly performance, like pop and rock and country and, you know, those very popular fields. They do all the other awards in the afternoon. And they have like just, you know, many categories of folk and new age and religious music, and, you know, everything is done then. So they move through them pretty quickly.
Pity, because it would be nice if the people can listen also to the concerto, you know, or that you could play there also live. It would be also nice if it would be a possibility. Yeah. But I'm so really proud and really bravo to you, and I'm looking forward that we will have a chance also to hear it. Is it there any, of course, except this recording, which we can all get, is there any option that we can also see it on the recording, so that you have maybe a video somewhere?
I'm hoping that we can work on that. But as now we don't have any, you know, American orchestras have very strict rules about videotaping. Even photographing with American orchestras can be sticky with the unions. So right now, you know, it's up on YouTube, but it's you know, an album cover and a few photos, but you know, in fact, the Gina Stera recording that there is video of as well, that was possible only because that was not a union orchestra, the Oberlin Orchestra, and so, you know, that was a great opportunity to get a video out there, because normally in the United States that's impossible.
And how the life changed in this way as well, because as I did, maybe you have seen it, I did the World Harp Congress from Vienna, the recordings which I got, and at that time there are also, which I cut out of the videos, but there are announcements, please wait for the photos only after the performer finished. So it was normal that we recorded, we have made pictures. It was absolutely open to everybody, no restrictions at that time. And these days it is really so tough. But on the other hand, honestly, maybe I am from the different world, but I don't understand why. Recording, I understand, but why not the photos? When this memory, you know, it's something what people can keep for themselves. And also it is somehow sometimes also the advertisement of that person, of that record, of that orchestra. Why they don't allow the people that they would be happy to share? Wow, wonderful concept was that it would be helping also to the orchestra. So I don't understand this politics at all at the moment. Yeah.
Well, it's very hard to regulate now. I mean, it's very easy for people to take a very quiet picture with their phone now. I think people do it, whether or not it's allowed. And you know, I have a few you know, pictures, the official pictures taken by an orchestra that, you know, that at the end of a concert, you know, people are standing there and clapping and they've all got their phones up, and, you know, you can see the little line of lights of phones in the audience. You know, and they're not allowed. So people do it anyway. What I hate though is I try very hard. You know, I think your most important, I tell my students this, the most important thing you can do on stage is to be a great host. Your audience, they are your guests and you are the host. You need to make them comfortable. You need to make them feel confident. They shouldn't be worried for you. You can't look stressed out. You know, you have to concentrate, but you must be gracious. So, you know, if an audience happens to clap between movements, you know, which you're not really supposed to clap between movements of a piece, you know, people who, you know, give a dirty look, I think that's not good. I think, you know, I will usually acknowledge it, you know, not like bow, but, you know, just very quietly acknowledge it. They're clapping for you. You know, I appreciate it. But, you know, one thing I hate, and I've never done this, never had to before or since, but I think it was with the Phoenix, Arizona Symphony. And someone in the very front row, a gentleman, I was playing Ginastera, and he had his cell phone for the entire first movement of the Ginastera concerto, had his cell phone like holding it up, like right at the foot of the stage. And I never do this, but I did this. In between movements, as you know, the orchestra was, you know, just adjusting themselves, I just looked down and I just went. And he kind of put it down like, I must have looked very scary.
He probably doesn't realize that you see him, really. It's very strange that he could have done it like this openly.
Yeah, well, I think live crowds now often forget they're not watching a video. They do stuff that I don't remember live audiences doing in the past. I think they often forget they're not watching a video. You know, they'll talk, they'll do things on their phones, they'll, you know. But
yeah, that's true. It has happened to me once that I had some recital and I did only a recording for myself on my phone, which I put in the back so nobody could have seen it. But because it was from the back, so I have seen all the audience in front of me, and I have seen like the people were making the video by themselves, like on the recital. I just saw them that they are putting the phone like this and they are making the recording of, nobody asked me even, you know. So that's
that I do not like, because I feel like there is some, you know, intellectual property involved, and you know, when you post a video, you should be able to post it from the angle and with the sound that you prefer, because you know, our sound is everything. And the harp can sound really good or really bad based on the kind of microphone, where it is, you know, what's going on. And, you know, as you know, those high frequencies can really get captured either well or not well. And, you know, that's everything we are, is our sound and our product. So it's not so good.
But that's, as we said, that the people are doing the things which they are not allowed to do anyway, because they just do it. Yeah. So unless they will not stop you like you did. So
I've never done that before, but it was distracting. You know, the light. There was a light on the phone, which was like a flashlight. You know, that was sort of like bobbing around, and it was, you know. I told my daughter that I did that, you know, this kind of a thing. She said, "Oh, mommy, that scares me when you do it to me." Okay, I won't do it again, but that was bad.
And do you have any projects in front of you? I mean, of course, now it's everything lockdown, but maybe you have some kind of projects in the future already planned.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything what you can talk about if it's not secret?
Sure. I am superstitious in terms of talking about projects until they're really, really close to done. But I'm excited about one particular project that involves some commissioning and my earth conservation cause and recording, and a lot of things that I care about all wrapped up in one. So that's in progress now, and got a couple of book projects that are long overdue that I owe my publishing company. So hopefully I'll have the chance to make those happen with a little extra time. And I would like very much to get my emails under control. At the beginning of COVID, I had about 19,000. I now have about 9,000, but I'm working on it. So that is one of my big COVID challenges. I just can't keep up with it. So, I mean, how do you handle that? Because you're so efficient, you do so many wonderful things. How do you keep up with the? I
can now see that I have there also over 2,000 unread mails. Yeah, so I have also a big problem with that. Yeah, I can't handle everything, and sometimes it's not the way that I don't want to. It's just like it comes so much that I can't handle it, and then of course I don't see it anymore, and they came out of my view, and it's not that I would ignore them, but I just can't see them afterwards, and of course it comes new ones. It's very hard sometimes too.
Yeah, and I feel very terrible because I'm not someone who ignores anyone if they, whether I know them or not, if they have a request, if they, asking a favor, a teacher asking a favor for their student. I want to do anything and everything I can. That's one of the things that, if you get to a point in your career where you can do a few things for people, I think you should. But it's like time. If I have days where I'm involved in a project or I'm teaching all day, or, my daughter needs me for something, if I miss a day, that's where the problem is. I miss a day and then I'm hundreds behind just from the one day. And then I get, I don't know. It's a problem. But hopefully my goal is to get down to under 100. How about that?
You are great. So good luck. We will keep fingers crossed. Yes. Because you were saying that you have also the projects of writing books, and you have already written. How many books did you make? Did you publish?
Well, 4 books related to music, and then I wrote a children's book also on earth conservation. So that was fun. That was fun.
This is amazing. You did two volumes of that. Is it 2 editions? Or
it's the second edition. And actually I'm about to release a 3rd edition that combines some of the information in the composer's book so that everything matches up with the special effects and symbols and that kind of thing. And I'm going to be writing a beginning harp book, which is something I wanted to do for a while, because as we were talking about before, that just beginning foundation. And I owed my publisher that book for, I don't know, 10 years. I need to get that done. So anyway.
When do you think that it will be ready?
I would say, within a year, we should be able to get it out there.
That's great. So now in this time when you unfortunately cannot have the concerts, are you now more concentrating on writing or more on the studying the new pieces? What do you do more?
Well, I think a little bit of all of it, because I have another recording with my guitarist, Jason VO. We are putting together a whole new program that involves quite a number of commissions and new pieces. So that I'm actively working on, and then a lot of this new solo repertoire for my other recording project, and hopefully that will turn into a performing project as well. But right now it's hard to have these conversations productively because nobody knows what's going on. And I know that very honorably a lot of presenters are trying to reschedule everything that got canceled before they start talking about new scheduling. So, and I respect that.
Mhm. And the recording is available. You can do recordings, even it's a lockdown. You can do the recordings.
Yes, yes. Well, right now I'm not too keen here in the States yet on traveling. And I rarely record right here. I usually have to travel somewhere to make recordings. And so, hopefully into the fall, I'll be able to comfortably do that again if we can get our act together over here.
Yeah, I would be very happy to hear about this new recording with your guitarist, because I have also a video of yours to play with your guitarist, which I would like maybe to post at the very end so that everybody will be really waiting for this wonderful music. And are you having also another chamber music ensemble, or is that only duo which you are doing regularly?
Well, sometimes I will, in various situations on a tour date, I might do some chamber music with members of the orchestra or something like that. But I've done a lot of chamber music in my life. I've toured with string quartets. I've toured with flutists. I've toured with eclectic groups of, strings and narrator, and spent a lot of time at chamber music festivals. So I've done a lot. And I feel like at this point in my life, I wanted to do something a little bit different. And Jason and I are good friends. It's fun, and it's an opportunity to perhaps help develop the harp and guitar repertoire, which is very interesting to me. Is to, there is some that people think, oh, is there anything for harp and guitar? There's a bit. And we pretty much recorded most of it on our first album. And this next album is going to be several pieces that we commissioned that were written for us, as well as one or two remaining things. Well, one particularly, a piece by Eric Sessler, which is a very good original piece. But we wanted to do all original music, no transcriptions, and kind of develop the genre of so that you're probably feeling the same way. I mean, we've done this for a while, and you sort of move into a point in your career where what you do, what you spend your time on, you want to be things that you are not just doing it because it's good for your career. You're doing it because you feel passionate about it. You love it. It's fun. It's interesting. And maybe it makes a little bit of a contribution that will help the next wave of folks doing this. So, it's different priorities, maybe.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. I'm looking forward to hear this video, and of course the new recording as well. I am sure that everybody is looking forward as well. I would like to go through some of the pictures which I have not only from you but also which I found. And here's the this is the concert what is this recording?
This is a recording that was very important to me. It was, I often say that everybody's always saying, oh, there's no repertoire for the harp. We have a lot of repertoire. It just doesn't get played enough. And so I thought, we have all this wonderful American original repertoire for the harp. It needs to be recorded. So this was a project that I proposed to my label, and they thought it was a good idea too. And I'm very proud of this record. I like it a lot.
And there are solo pieces only.
They're what? Oh yes, all solo.
All solo. And when was this recorded? When is it?
Oh, you're asking all these dates, and I can't remember.
No, I said that it's maybe.
I think it was I don't know, probably around 2010 or 12.
So it's still available, this CD, so that we can.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, you can get pretty much. I think you can get most all my stuff on Amazon. And it's all available at my web store as well, on my website, if it's out.
At your website as well. Yeah, so I will just leave it there so that the people can write down your website. Here's your photo from the concert. Do you remember where was that? This
was a Ginastera performance. I would say, the harp concerto I play the most, even though sometimes I say, let's, how about we try something a little different. A lot of work is just go straight for that Gina stare. I think I played this piece, a few years ago when I made the recording, I counted up at least 200 times I've performed that piece. And, that was a few years ago. So I played a lot. So most of the concert photos I have, 8 out of 10 of them are going to be Gina stare.
Honestly, you are the first performer I have heard the Ginastera. And you really inspired me. And I totally remember, because it was just like, I think about 2 months before I was supposed to make my own premiere of that piece. So that I said like, wow, this is a great piece, because you played it so fantastically. So that it was so inspiring for me. I said like, I'm really looking forward to play it in 2 months. It was so wonderful, really. So you were the first one, and for me, you are connected with this piece. Like when you hear someone really for the first time, so wonderfully as you did. So thank you.
Thank you.
Also another one. Here, I would not recognize you. What did you play there?
Oh, you know what? This is funny. This was the day of the Grammy Awards, and this was the Higdon Harp Concerto, and I was with the Wichita Symphony. And the reason you would not recognize me, I have a very good reason for that, is the Wichita Symphony was so sweet. They knew I was missing most of the Grammys to play the concerts. It was a weekend of concerts, and that was the Saturday evening concert before there was one on Sunday as well. They gave me a red carpet experience. They had a red carpet. They got a hair salon, a hair person to come to the concert hall and do my makeup and my hair. And see, my hair never looks that good. That's why you don't recognize me. It was like, who is that? I look at it and I think, who is that? Who did that hair? Wow. But that was my simulated red carpet night.
Oh, mine.
Red was so sweet.
Nightmare of all of us. I mean, red carpet in the way you are talking is great, but red carpet as the harpist red carpet, when we have to have red carpet through the strings, it is nightmare.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Right. Yes, I understand.
This is a beautiful photo and very known and very famous one. This is beautiful. Do you play or do you own also salcedo harp? Because you are often put together with the salcedo harp.
My own harps, I have 3. I have 3 salcedo harps. And one is a quite older harp, and it's very sentimental. I made probably 15 of my Telarc recordings on its beautiful kind of older woody sweet sound now. So that's my sort of my grandma harp, and then I have 2 newer ones.
Do you always choose them by yourself?
Do I always what?
Choose the instrument by yourself?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
All 3 of them are natural?
Yes. Yep. And, it kind of goes with I so appreciate the beautiful gold and the carvings and it's so gorgeous, but, it almost goes back to, my childhood and, what I was talking about. I was a bit of a tomboy. I didn't like wearing dresses. I, did a lot of dirty outdoor play. And somehow the salcedo harp fits my personality. I very rarely wear, I nowadays I wear sort of skinny black pants and, some sort of a colorful top. I feel like as I've gotten older, I have felt able to be a little bit more of my own personality. When I was younger, I had management. They, I needed to look a certain way. And I had lots of gowns and, fluffy things and flowy dresses. And, it was kind of fun at that age. But now I feel that, when I walk on stage, I would like to project something very close to my own personality. And that's what makes us all different, you know. I mean, why go to two different harp concerts if there's a formula, you know, if both of us are going to look and sound and interpret things the same way. So, you know, I guess I feel freer to be myself.
That's great, yeah. And I think that also if you perform often Hinastera, I think that is perfectly matched together the style of music as well. So that's really gorgeous. I have here a picture probably of your students because you are here as well. So if you can tell us where are you teaching and how long have you been teaching and so on about your professional position.
Well, I'm about to start I believe it is my 23rd or 24th year of teaching at the Cleveland Institute of Music and Oberlin Conservatory. And, you know, when I started teaching, I had just moved to New York. I had just started with my, you know, record contract, my management contract. I was touring a ton, and Alice Shalafu retired in 1997, and she wanted very much for me to take over both of those positions. It was very important to her, and you know, teaching has always been. I've always known that's a very, very important component, I think, of any performer's life. I think it's, you know, teaching does for your playing. I think what parenting does for your personality. You know, in the same way we were talking about how we changed. We think about things differently. We play the harp differently. We do everything differently when you become a parent. Once you become a teacher, I think you become a different player also. And, you know, so way back in 1997, I remember thinking, how in the world am I going to do this? How there aren't enough hours in the day. And I remember my teacher said, in that very typical way she said, "Oh dear, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out." It's like, okay. But I did, you know, it was a priority to make it work somehow. It was important. And I think that, you know, the opportunity to sit there when you're not playing and have to analyze a lot of the same music that you are playing from a different view. You know, you're not, your brain is doing different things when you're playing the harp, but when you're sitting there, you're thinking about things in a different way. And I think that's very, very valuable. And I think by the same token, when you're a performer, you think as a teacher a little bit differently, or an active performer. You know, you've just played that piece a couple weeks ago and now you're teaching it. It gives you a different sensibility when you say, okay, now listen, you know what, going into that passage, you're going to need to find a way to, you know, rest your right arm because you're going to be fatigued. And then you need, you know, so turn it into something that looks like you mean to do it while you're actually resting your arm. You know, I mean, that's what, you know, when you perform, you get all these little tricks that you can then bring to your students as well. So it's been a very good back and forth synergy with the teaching. And now I don't know how I would live without it. I adore my students. I feel like they are children in a way, and sort of differently, but a little bit like my teacher before me. I become very close to them. I get all up in their decisions and, you know, helping try and, you know, make navigating this crazy career a little bit easier. So it's you know, it's definitely a passion now, the teaching.
It's a great to combine everything because, as you said, everything gives us something. And as we have some experience, we can share it with the new generation, which I'm sure that every teacher feels as a happiness as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here it's also another beautiful picture with your also Salcedo harp.
Right.
This is a picture for another CD, no? Because I think that I saw it also on some CD, or is it very similar to some CD cover?
Well, this is the picture that we did that was used for the Jennifer Higdon Harp Concerto promotion. There wasn't a picture. I mean, as I said, that CD was not all me. It was a symphonic CD with the Barber First Symphony and the Patrick Harlan Rapture, as well as the Higdon Harp Concerto. But that was the photo that was used for the promotion of that concerto. And I'm there, like I said, I'm feeling more myself. I'm sitting there in jeans. I'm, and that kind of goes with the piece as well, because it's definitely not a flowy gown kind of a piece, the Higdon Harp Concerto. It's more of a jeans sort of a piece.
I'm excited to hear it. Really, I'm excited. I'm sure that I'm not the only one. Here is also a nice picture from maybe a little bit solo, not solo recital, but sort of CD from the past. Do you remember what is there on this CD?
Well, this was the first project I did with Azika, and it's actually a compilation of it. It's a best of album, and I picked things that I particularly liked. I mean, by that point I had, 16 or so CDs. And so I was able to extract things like the Grand Genie Rhapsody, Salcedo Scintillation, Pierre Ney, some of the things that I just thought were, not only my favorite pieces, but also things all in one place that, if you're a young harpist, I thought it would be nice to have some of this repertoire collected just as reference,
That's wonderful, but certainly all the CDs are still available. So as I'm trying to post most of them, what I found on your not on your webpage, but also on the internet. So I hope that we can all these CDs still be able to purchase. Here's also a beautiful picture of yours. This is really amazing photo.
Oh, well, I remember this photo was taken. I had an album coming out, and I was judging the USA harp competition in Bloomington, and my harp needed to be fixed. And a dear friend of mine, who's also a photographer, lives in Chicago. So I remember I had one day off with the Bloomington competition, and I got up at the crack of dawn, took my harp to Line and Healy. It had a buzz in it. I left my harp there. They gave me another harp. I went to see my friend, Mark, who spent a few hours taking these cover photos for a new album. I went back to Line and Healy, picked up my harp, I went to Greektown, which I cannot go to Chicago without going to Greektown and stuffing myself with Greek food. And then I drove back to Bloomington. It was like, the 20-hour day, but we couldn't eliminate the Greek meal. That was a deal breaker.
And you are talking about me. I'm so hungry now. No, but the picture is gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And this is another picture which is so unique and so special. This is also the concerto, for the new concerto.
Well, the photographer just did this. She wanted to take a few pictures of the harp separately because, sometimes when you're designing an album cover, they just have a picture of the harp somewhere. She said, so let's take some pictures of just the harp. And then just on her own, she put together this crazy, it's like a kaleidoscope, almost a harp kaleidoscope. And I wasn't sitting there surrounded by harps.
Yeah, of course.
But it was very cute the way she did it. And, a lot of people seem to like that picture. So we use it.
It's really unique. It's very special and very beautiful, honestly. It's really very, very beautiful. And here I found a picture, of course, as you were doing many of the interviews already in the radios and so on. Where was the last one? Do you remember now before the lockdown?
The last interview, the last radio interview? Well, now I do radio interviews all the time because that's one thing we can do, through, telecommunication. But that was another strange and very long day. that same day, we took a picture of all the coffee cups lined up on the counter because we call those radio days. And those are promotions. I do one for most of my albums where I go to one radio station here in Cleveland and they line up, or the record promotion company lines up like 15, 18 radio interviews all over the place, all over the country, and they call in, and yet you can record it at a good quality, and you sit there with your headphones from like 9 in the morning until 6 in the evening, and it's just one after the other, and you sit there and you drink coffee, and you finish one, and they say, "Okay, who do we have here?" And they, so that one was for the Higdon Harp Concerto.
Wonderful. And here's also one, of course, in the television as well, as you were certainly often there.
Yeah, very early in the morning, those television things. I'm not a morning person, so
not easy. You look beautiful everywhere. You look beautiful. I found a picture from the past. Little, like you were saying about the hair, but you look so gorgeous anyway. It's really it's a beautiful picture, and this is also a very known picture. It has been also used to some cover of the CD, probably, right?
That was my very, very first album cover, and I remember that so well. I had, I was a New Yorker. I had lived in New York only a little bit, and the record company hired, they had that was back in the days when record companies really had money. It was a whole big cover session and a photographer and a stylist. And I remember the day before the photo session, the record company stylist took me all over New York. It was like the most wonderful tour of New York and fashion, and got highlights in my hair. I can't see them, but I had highlights in my hair, and we went to, fashion places that I never would have gotten to go by myself. And that top I was wearing, it doesn't belong to me. It was given to us for the session by a designer named Norma Kamali, who was very popular at the time. And I think that it's like a little jacket over a velvet, like just simple velvet dress. But I think that little jacket thing cost, I don't know, $6,000.
Wow.
Yeah. I had it. It was mine for the day, and I had to be very careful of it. But it was one of those wonderful experiences that, as a young person just starting out, it was very special, and makes you feel like, wow, what a nice little perk from all that hard work to get to go visit fashion houses and, get your hair done. The hair is a little, my hair has never looked like that ever before or since, ever. I don't even know how that was achieved.
No, but you look great. And it was a time of this kind of style. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely dates the recording. Oh my goodness. There I am. I was about 17 or 18 there. Yeah. And look at that hair. Woo.
And you played solo?
I did. I played the Handel Concerto with the New York Philharmonic. It was the result of a competition.
Fantastic. And here here's again another interview in the television, probably. And here's you with your little daughter.
Well, actually, that is not my daughter. That is the son of a very, very close friend of ours. I've sort of made a joke on my my blog or my social media that that little boy was just drafted into the Cubs, the Chicago Cubs, and I was thinking, well, gosh, that makes me at least 40. I am not 40. I am much more than 40. But
so
there was sort of a little timeline photo.
Yeah, and here I found this photo. This is you.
Yep, I'm sitting there at the harp. That was one of my summers up at the Salcedo School in Camden, Maine. Every year we all had to. I was sort of a rebel everyone was supposed to have a white dress up there. And I just somehow I couldn't bring myself, I guess that same old thing I have, I couldn't bring myself to purchase a white dress. So I did my best. I think that sweater was like sort of a light orange and a brown skirt. How's that? Always the rebel.
And it's so many students of Alice, your teacher. So it's all of them. How long was this camp? How long has been this school?
Well, you know, it is not in session anymore, sadly. Alice Chalafou retired, and you know, a few years later, finally, just, you know, it's a huge undertaking where all these harp students would come to this wonderful, magical town, small town on the coast, right on the ocean, Camden, Maine. And it was a very simple concept. She worked her head off. She taught 6 days a week from 9 in the morning until, you know, sometimes I would go over there right after dinner and I'd be there till 11, just, you know, having these marathon lessons. And all these people would just go to Camden, Maine, and she would find them rooms in homes in the little town. And we'd have 2 lessons a week and just practice. I mean, that was probably one of the most important elements of my learning of repertoire, because you truly had nothing competing for your attention except practicing all day and making sure you didn't make a fool of yourself at your 2 lessons a week. You know, you had to have new things learned. And, you know, right now, I don't know how people keep their attention span with all the distractions, you know, social media. You got to keep checking everything all the time. I am convinced I would not have learned half the repertoire I did if I was being raised in this time where you have to keep up with it. It's almost non-negotiable at a certain point if you want to, you know, like I said, my daughter is starting college in the fall. She gets like 2 or 3 emails and messages a day that she has to keep up with just for college to do the stuff she's supposed to do. I remember when I went to college, I had to return a form that I filled out in pen and then show up. You know, that was it. And I don't know if all of this is actually making us more efficient. I think it's making us more distracted in a way.
No, I totally agree that we were more concentrated on our way of work, and that we could really more do, because of course we had the phone, but not the iPhone, or I mean not the mobile phone. We had the phone which was ringing at home. Then later we had the answer machine, which was at least helping us when we were not at home. But we were always looking for the mail coming from and post office brought the letters to us, and we just knew that that's the day of the information, the correspondence, but not that. And later when came the faxes, that was something new, but we were not so disturbed by this technology yet.
Yeah, it will be interesting to just see years from now research on levels of focus and concentration. I mean, maybe this generation will just adapt and be able to do 5 things at once and keep it all straight and still have limited segments of intense focus. I mean, it's possible. I just, you know, I was not, I'm not wired that way.
No, it's certainly, I think that it's, there is so many things, so many subjects which the young people needs to do and to follow, and just to be adjusting to this period of time, that I don't think that they can concentrate so much on one thing as we could at that time. Yeah.
I mean, I still do that. If I'm working on a project, I kind of go off the radar. I just go deep in that, and you know,
we were educated like that, so we can do slow. Yeah, we can run slow. You know, in the way that we can.
That's a good expression. That's wonderful.
We just know that not with the speed of doing the things we can run faster. So that, I don't think that the students or the young generation knows this. They think that everything has to be done immediately, right now, and if it's not done, and then anyway, it's not complaination. It's just like that I just know that the period generation was different and was really educated different in the past, which I am actually thankful for that I was able to live in that time.
I think it's very challenging, and you know, and not only is it, I mean, I like the fact that especially a world like the harp world now is so much more connected because of technology. You know, we're doing this, you know, 20 years ago, we would not have been able to do this. But, you know, I feel like it's good for small kind of quirky niche communities, but I think it's also not so good when you, I mean, I tell my students this, for instance, if they're preparing for a competition, you simply cannot be worried about what everybody else is doing when you're trying to do what you are doing. You've got to concentrate on being the very best you can, doing all the research you can, searching deep. You know, it's not like it's an easy job and that you need to be, you know, just, oh, I don't care about anything. But, you know, you have to care about everything. But you can't care about everything when you're becoming who you are. And I feel like the temptation to compare yourself constantly is disturbing. I think, you know, a lot of kids of this generation, the minute they think, okay, you know what, I just had a good practice session, I'm getting somewhere here, I'm making progress, then they go and watch a YouTube video or see somebody's Instagram post or a Facebook post where immediately they assume, oh, what's the use? Somebody's already better than I am. You know, there's that constant sort of beat down where occasionally that is good, that pushes you. But if it's constant, it is just, and you know, and I think on the internet, there is also a lot that isn't exactly what it seems. You know, whether it's a photograph or even a video, we can't depend on everything we see these days. So it's not only is it disturbing, but it is almost falsely disturbing. You know, because we don't always know what we're looking at.
Absolutely, yeah, very right. Yeah, it is sometimes not the truth in the way.
Yes.
So that, and I was saying that many times already during these other interviews, that I feel like that in these days everybody can do something what is not real. That actually in the past the people could only talk about that person. Yes, that person played wonderfully. You know, you should hear them or you should hear her, him. But in these days, it's whatever is written. Everybody trusts to that, but it's actually the reality. They would never be able to say, wow, that's really great, because they will see differently than on the social medias. Yeah. So it's not true. It's more the media things than the reality life.
And also, I feel that I do believe very much that every voice needs to be heard. Every voice needs to be respected. However, when you and I were coming up, I think we assumed that it was very important to learn and to pay our dues and to get to a point where we really understood what we were commenting on. And, you know, as teachers, as critics, as colleagues, we needed to make sure that we knew what we were talking about. And I feel like we took responsibility a little bit more for that than people do now, because you have a lot of people saying a lot about things they don't entirely understand. And that's a problem.
Yeah, unfortunately, but at least it's nice that we still can understand our generation in the way that we know what we are talking about, in the sense of that we understand absolutely the kind of problem, which hopefully will not go over limit, and that we will still keep the quality of art in the way which we want, that it will be kept. And yeah, so that we will still listen to the harpist as is today's guest and star, Yolanda Kondonassis. And I'm really so happy that you made time for us today, because it's amazing what all the stories you can talk about. And I would like, of course, this is not the end. I would like to ask, because I have also the picture of a beautiful hall. It's in Cincinnati, or where is it?
Yeah, that's in Cincinnati. And oh my goodness, the name of the hall is eluding me. But I just thought that was so beautiful. I usually like to spend a little time whenever I'm performing on the day of the concert. I like to just be in the hall. You know, every hall has a personality and almost an aura. And so I like to just walk around, and I took that picture and I just thought, how striking is that space, you know? I'm so lucky to get to perform in places like that, you know?
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Is there any hall which you particularly like the best for performing, either if it was solo or the solo with the orchestra?
Well, I do have some favorite concert halls, but I have to say the one that just sticks out in my mind, and I hope I get to go back there sometime, is the National Concert Hall in Taiwan, in Taipei. I played a solo recital there many years ago. And I think it is one harp in a giant, I mean, it was giant. And I remember walking in there and thinking, how in the world is this space going to work for a solo recital? Have you played there?
I played, but there's the orchestra, which is different.
Yeah. I you know, and then luckily I had a couple of people with me who were also harpists that were taking care of me when I was there. And I went out of the hall and just, you know, to see, how is this going to work? It was phenomenal. It was, I could hear the tiniest sound they made, and the loudest sounds were mellow. They were, I don't know, they should duplicate that hall many times over. But, and as a result, I just remember that recital was just such a pleasure, because you know, what you get back from a space when you put sound out into it is it can really be very gratifying, or not so much, especially with a harp. And that was just, I remember being sad when that concert was over. It was only one of them, and I just, you know, was just wishing I could do another, you know. And that was also, you know, so different from the United States. I remember that night very well too, because when I went out, you know, went back to my dressing room and, you know, put on my jeans and packed up my stuff, and I was leaving to the dressing room door thinking, okay, I'm going to go back to the hotel now and, you know, order some room service. And outside the stage door, I'm sure you've had this too in Asia and sometimes in Europe, it's a completely different sort of fan base. You know, I felt like I was, you know, a rock star or something. I walked out, there was like 100 young concert goers there wanting me to sign their backpacks and their stuffed animals and their was just, it sticks in my mind because it's like the only time that's ever happened. But and then I also remember someone that there was a group of them was from some sort of a school, and they were all having me sign with their newly chosen American names, because they had all chosen, they had their Chinese names and they had, you know, they had chosen an American name to have. And one person told me their name was Amy. And my longtime best friend of, you know, now what, 40 years, also is named Amy. And I said, oh my goodness, my best friend's name is Amy. And I signed Amy. And so after that, I must have signed 40 things to Amy. I said, my best friend was named Amy. And so then it became, everybody was Amy. But it was very sweet. So sweet.
That's lovely. And do you have any funny story from your career as a performer, solo performer? Did something happen to you which was absolutely unexpected for you and you remember that?
Well, I have a lot. I've been touring for, I don't know, 30 plus years pretty constantly. So there are a lot of good stories. Some of them are more appropriate than than others for a situation like this. But probably the most memorable one I had was in Lexington, Kentucky, and I'll make it short as I can. But I tend to do my traveling late at night. I find it, I like to work a full day. And then, when I'm not good for much else, I will, put my music on and get a cup of coffee and drive wherever I need to go. And I had just played a concert in Chicago, and I was driving down to Lexington, Kentucky, which is right in the heart of, the middle South of the United States. And so I got to the hotel very late. I drove in there. I must have been after midnight, maybe 1 a.m. And in the time since my itinerary from my manager was made and my getting there, the name of the hotel had changed. It was no longer the Radisson. It was something else, the Downtown Hotel or something. And I was circling the hotel. There was sort of a circular thing, and a policeman ended up stopping me. And, he asked me, why are you in town? And blah, blah, blah. And, he put his flashlight in the back of my car. It's like, okay, all right. And I explained to him I was looking for the Radisson. He said, oh, okay, that it used to be the Radisson. No problem. Then the next night was the first rehearsal of, with the orchestra. And I don't like to eat. I never eat before I rehearse or play a concert.
So that was the question which I wanted to ask, if you have any habit before the concert. So you don't eat at all.
Well, I eat like late in the afternoon. I will have like, some chicken or something like around 3 or 4, but I don't really have like dinner. So after things, I'm always hungry. So I was out looking for food because I knew the restaurant at the hotel would be closed by then. I was out looking for food. I get stopped by the same policeman. And he says, what's a lady like you out by herself all the time late at night? And then he asked me to open up the back of my van. And at that point, the harp was gone. The harp was at the hall. And so I had a mattress, lots of silk pillows and blankets. I have the silk pillows because they slide easily, right? And so he's shining the flashlight in the back of the car, and it's like, I suggest you go home. So I did, and did not find food that night, which was a hardship. Next night, it was right after 9/11. And so I was not yet used to like packing properly. And I would always take my tools, my screwdriver and my stuff in my carry-on bag, but I had lost it on my last trip. They took it because you're not allowed to, at that point, you couldn't have a screwdriver or pliers or anything. And I needed to regulate a couple strings on my harp. So the next night after the rehearsal, I said, I need to find, a Walmart where I can get a screwdriver. So again, I was out around 10:30 at night. Same policeman stops me. And by then I was a little dense. I then realized what he thought I was, a traveling service provider of sorts. And so he ordered me to go home again, basically. And then the next night was the concert. And I was all dressed up. You
Mhm.
know, I dressed at the hotel, and I, had sparkly earrings and red lipstick, and, I was ready for a concert.
Mhm. Mhm.
Stops me again. I almost missed the concert.
Oh
I got
no.
there barely in time to tune because, that he called in, and he was convinced I was just doing a little short-term stint there in Lexington, doing a little business. But I remember telling there was a there was a reception after the concert, and I believe it was the mayor of Lexington who was there. And I remember telling the story. I didn't want to get the poor young policeman in trouble, but I did tell the story because it had made for such a harrowing evening trying to get to the concert. I was trying to explain, no, I play the harp. Here's a program. I can show you there's it was like, not buying it. Yeah. So I don't know if all harpists have been mistaken for a prostitute, you know, but I
It's a wonderful story. I know that I have also, my car is always prepared for carrying the harp or traveling with the harp. So it's also with the mattress there, it's the pillows there, everything. And always when I came to the service of the car, they always look at me like, you are sleeping in the car? Or what are you doing there? So I hardly can really explain them that it's really, really for the instrument that I
Yeah, nowadays I try and make it look a lot more functional. It
Mhm.
it no more satin silky pillows or nice blankets. I use like ratty blankets that look like they belong to a dog or something. It's we do what we have to.
Oh my goodness. I am sure that many harpists has some kind of very similar experiences, but this one is absolutely amazing that you have been 4 times stopped by the same policeman.
Yeah.
It's really funny. It's wonderful, wonderful. And tell me also when you will start to perform again. It's like it should be probably at the beginning of the next year, as I have seen in United States. Do you have already now any concerts which is really sure that can happen next year, and what program it is going to be?
Well, I quite honestly, we here in the United States are everything is pretty cautious. The hope is that by shortly after the beginning of the year, we can start doing things. But I have a couple of dates that were postponed from this previous spring to next spring. So they just moved them, you know, so I will have some recording sessions in the winter. And beyond that, we're just going to have to see. I mean, I feel like what this has taught us, this whole experience is, I think harpists by nature, we have to be planners, because we've got all these, so many things that we have to figure out with the harp and logistics and, all of that. So we become good planners, but we can't, I'm not planning beyond about maybe 2 weeks from now. So I think it's probably not a bad exercise, because really, a universal truth in life is that, we plan, but all we really have is this moment. So it's kind of at least teaching me to be in the moment more. We don't know what is coming.
Absolutely, I know. But is there any wish which is your either wish or dream which you might have either in the personal life or either in your professional life, but what you can share with us, and it's something what you would love that happens to you?
Well, right now, I think my most immediate dream is that my daughter will be able to start her life and have as many wonderful, normal experiences as possible. And that will start with her being able to go to college in the fall. And I hope she gets to do that. It's the plan right now, but, again, we'll have to see. So in terms of a dream, I wish for her to have as much opportunity and freedom as I did when I was her age. Professionally, I would like to, I'm doing it right now, but I would like to do more and more of those things that I do for only one reason, and that is because I want to. I think we all sort of, like I said before, we spend at least part of our careers doing things because we feel like, it's a very good thing to do. We should do it. And I feel like the next chapter of my career, I want to do those things that speak to me, that really fit, are a great fit for me and interest me passionately. I think it's one or two projects at a time, but that's the direction that I would like to go.
That's wonderful. I wish really that everything what you really dream about, that comes true, and that every step of your life, it's going the same direction which you wish, and that you will bring many, many new wonderful projects to the world, and that we will, of course, hear again about new CDs, that we will hear about your successes, which you so much deserve. And I'm so, so happy for your time, which you took for us, brought us, and gave us. And I'm so, so thankful for everything what you share with, for your music, for your wonderful pictures, stories, and your time and your personality. Yolanda, I thank you very, very much. I wish you all my health, to your daughter good success for your new step in her life, and of course to your whole family. To be happy.
Thank you. And Jana, if I may say, you are a gift. You are a gift to the harp community. You are a gift to your audiences. Such a beautiful, warm spirit, and I am so grateful for you in this profession that we share. So grateful. And this is a wonderful thing you're doing, and I cannot wait to see you in person. We need to go have Greek food or Mexican food or some wonderful, delicious food that we can stuff ourselves with and have a glass of wine.
I'm looking forward, and I hope really to see you very soon. Thank you so much, Yolanda, for everything. And of course, I will not miss to say goodbye with a beautiful music which Yolanda performed with her guitarist colleague. And only you can say a little bit about this, because it's a beautiful video. So you can maybe a little bit introduce what is it?
Well, this is just, I believe what you have is a trailer or a little preview of our last album called Together. And, because Jason and I have kind of a similar personality, we joke around a lot. We thought it would be fun to sort of do something that showed the dynamic between the two of us, as well as our music. So it was just a fun little short video.
Thank you so much, and I'm so glad to everybody who was with us as well. Thank you very much for your wonderful comments, for your wonderful presence to be with us, and I am really so thankful that we have so wonderful harpist as today's guest, Yolanda Kondonassis. I thank you very much. All my best wishes and all the best wishes to everybody, and I'm looking forward to see you in person, hopefully very soon, and see you all online on Saturday when we will have Park Stickney. So I hope that we will all be able to be together. I thank you very much, and now enjoy the beautiful, beautiful music which will be now present by our guest, Yolanda Kondonassis.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye to everyone.
We've been playing concerts for a few years now, and part of the reason we wanted to form a duo was to try to expand the repertoire. And so the plan in the last couple of years has been to play concerts featuring only original music and hopefully get some new pieces written for the duo as well.
It's unlike any chamber music combination I've ever been a part of before. And I think part of that too is just the dynamic between us, because we have extremely parallel careers, similar temperaments. We don't have to say an awful lot, and we just sort of get it. And that kind of translates to our chamber music. vibe as well. So it's just been really fun and really easy. It is, I think with the harp and guitar, it's a little bit of that, the sum is greater than its parts in a way, because, it's like the flute and the oboe together, they form a completely different instrument. There's such a crossover that even I, as a harpist, if I hadn't known the repertoire, would wonder, man, which is that? Is that the harp or the guitar? And I think just
the harp guitar.
it's a guitar.
It's a nice. That's actually better. The two instruments, while the sound is produced a very similar way, in a unique way from all other classical music instruments, not with breath and not with a bow and not with hammers. Like on a piano, but that we're generating the sound through our fingertips. But the sounds of the two instruments blended together, we've really gotten probably the biggest response from audiences so far in the concerts we played is, wow, what a sound. I think composers that are looking to do something different and really unique, we were hoping that our kind of joining forces would issue this challenge for some composers to write for this combination.
To take on both of those instruments in one piece, I think, is challenging for a composer, but I think the dividend is pretty high because you're really bringing repertoire to a sort of blended idiom that didn't exist before.
Open frontier.
I do think there's just a great, almost an international vibe on this album as well. You really kind of get a lot of world flavors,
yes,
a lot of different influences from many different parts of the world, and I think it does have that little touch of exoticism too, that contributes to that experience like nothing else. So I guess that's what we hope for.
She's got a good sense of humor too, so which is helpful in rehearsal because I goof around a lot.
Yeah, we do. We spend a
little too much time.
A lot of time goofing around.
Yeah, actually, I didn't mean to say something to you about that.
Yeah, well, me too. But I'm glad we're bringing it out now.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.